And this is for the 200 copy. Yeah, no copy.
Lawrence, and now when you this in pa.
Oh, Mojana yenim by Chadi Anka this.
This pa to end this in pa. And one no. And the MPP ni pa be
okay, Moja say. Okay, Moja na papa etie ne nsam Moja de to and constitution.
Lawrence, if you have a
oh, CJ, Yamanadom. Yeah, you good. Akamaka. Namite wo interview with Takradi Free.
Yes, Bishop. The nature of Takradi.
Mankasa me witness bi wo Aguna Nyakrum. Aye Koko Road. In fact, Koko fi esikuma na otin cry na ze. Na bridge kakra o. On into why diversion. Na say a use the diversion no e wonya krom ho e bisa ho dem long vehicles no why don't we mean that way into my air train day ye beti do car bi akoto car foforo do and akoto bi ni fie another BB, and it has been there for more than a year. Our bridge no wonya dem ha no enter kasa fata krado won because at least there are some roads are meaningful there as a country no you need economic importance. Say, I will enjoy Nimpana what one po one. The economic importance of those roads. Na yen first kenshim because there will be a return for that investment.
And I pay Kwanya me kan ho asemi. Obi ti be bia obeka say politics na me here, but I think that it's high time. Emrenwe dua. We need to hold duty bearers accountable, and for me as a Ghanaian, akwanya ye nam so I mean sometimes and it's so worrying. It's so worrying, but well, you go so near bet me and no and after
mupe brofo akese then nsem kika akwan na mo kan muni mabakose mewo
takrade dia ya ken
enye takrade akwan yes so kan we ya na ochiako brofo duty bearers nense muni abakose mewo
abakose mbe ne wo
owura ne kan sem bi ho hia pa but me hope say na on kan say NDC ni no kan say Ghana ni ba yakwan enkomo yeni nkomo e wa kwan ho yedi nkomo ankasem okan no ubehu se nda meka so yi ne NDC sem frimu na ye ka Ghana sem a emupi emri bi etwem na me program bi wo TV so
yeah
na me program bi na me produce na me host so in the house na interview parliamentarians.
Yes like
good. Now, a no decide this information na ye nyawo ye research move for programs no. A bro near you to me the two programs no, so in the sense say doso. Into you see to me to be a tudra in another form. Into you try see a bear magazine. Unimni adia you yes ye be researcher who the most asked questions in Parliament. Fitting Kruma pencil. ABC Sab Mrena na which was 2010. Oh, because me am refiminianity no na ye editor. This is PR or Stanbic. No edited guide. And independent and anyway. Research no. The questions most asked in all republics, first, second, third, and fourth, is on roads. Into who say, acquiring common, as see dear, ye better, who say, make I mean ya gabi peja assembly in Phoebe tremu. No, peja and my first emotional reactions all kind be emotions, no never first, and Zana, what dream, who I can say, oh, maybe I say anything. Me first, and I don't know, but me sang. Dream no na me hu say no kind na bawo and it tallies with your penika SCI which is SCI because akwan bi wo no ma yemfa asphalt into so you found you don't asphalt it. You just keke. I didn't hear. Usuzuka se faswa in a day. Abroswa ane 5. Ediane wo ho. On wo kua. On do kua. Ye di won ediane ebe sinkoton. But say when you di akoni abawo kromnis won yin bi. Bibia wo ni kro no mu ho ehia no. So betuka na cheso okoton ne niama. Se car no so bakro no so cheso obi akoton ne niama na anase wakoto bibia opeso beton wo kro no. And there's no other road activity. Inti ukotwa so millions of dollars na car se no mu afaso. Mfaso nim. And only economic no activity no. You measure it against the use of the road. And you know, as you see this in common na nipa biti won ho ase se akwan bi won no ma yen akwan bi won so ya anya yen ye pray ho takra di kwan say there's no way it will fall under sa nsem ya make kenke because takra di ekru kese inti baby abefe bia activity cause titro infidie activity inti SCA but SCA jitum se Ghana akwan ho nsem no ye ni ho nkoma politics be me ya ye niema NCC ye nti se san community ye no free ono ma akwan no em say ampanimfo enya botre because obia pese ye ne kwan ye me oba me fie sisi a won kran hanuma akwan na yo nso me nya ya nka na ya san agusu bio because obe na photos me nsa bi wo but it's not realistic. Oh, intina as I say, yeshe. Na ye analyzing ye. Na ye but no great woman is acquainted de bibri wa mpenifo aye. Ewa banimu. Bibri awon aye. Ina se na me din komo ye se hohoi eko he say sakwa no na nye kra etwa so a otizo nam so kra first near say the 2 hours nature so say 15 minutes now do because one yama is going well and the point is that akwani dey bibri and bibri wo so a kwan bia so and I make say me gra me fie portos me so like I say nka mu de bibri
but the case of Western Regional Capital Takrade
but say no majatu say in a place like Takrade no there must not in Uba industrial area, baby uncle, baby uncle you. In places where there's heavy economic activity, to set a you cannot ignore any one road. Here. That's what I said.
Okay.
Intimajitum say, but me and can I say, Aquani ye, Aquani de one ye pa, a month will be a pair. One and one claims and not one for quite be so an amphobia that because he track one so why the power and the name a quite a quee.
Takrade and the man I'm called so nine.
Some man can say Takrade. Some man can say Takrade, and the man can say, oh no, Ancasa or now can Unim Bena me. Intimate to me. I won't ask your own okay, because some mummy no represent a survey, so him research. Maybe I will represent Nipa 1,000. I will eat into my interim. Campaign ekoso ora mahama na kufa duka sa kwan no ye behwe ni aye no ora mahama ka tense ono onam kwan no so a e smooth ntino ya no wadanti onim ni ekoso and I'm saying Sana Ekoso
made us
the opposite side.
I think Mohammed join here. I think Akwaba.
Mejuso.
Bibi aboko de.
Ochemi enu hu protest.
Greetings Michiano Amana Akwaba.
Menuano
Uye chawa emedo. Opposite no na make
Wow. I think so. Yeah,
it could be better by Aguso.
That's it. And topic na
Republic of Gamaga for Swing.
Yeah, the Republic for no so. And so the Koho. Na official introduction.
Exactly.
Now the Koho.
Oh, what the better? You call public 1 week. If you are now corner, you're betting Northeast.
Yeah. Ready for that.
School anthem.
Oh yes. That tells you the importance of South Republic.
It tells you how
and how old it is.
How good our school is to recognize.
Well, what was Adom 106.3 FM. Okay. Yanshan komo no ase. Na san komo we mepese mesha free atik for personal reason because abapeng Yebekaya, for His Excellency the former president, NDC, a lawyer focus here, this issue of appointment of judges near the Ebai. And then Justice William Atuguban so Asanso Abesi Nsem no so Abu. And then we can add the judgment of Jechukwesi near the end of the comment I'll make it. Atik, please allow me, but forgive me, but Meshas at the FU. Now, yeah, first 10 minutes. Atik.
Me that say, Nedi Kain, Micha, it's for you, any actual for you now. Say, I've always made the point, say, anytime, yeah, a man you some cry jinsemo, and a mambo, a jinsemo, there's only one institution that usually survives, and that's the judiciary. It tells you how important our judiciary is, and found whether we are in revolutions and now we've suffered coup d'etats or not. In democracy and in bad times, I'm about sure. Periods of coup, counter coups, and threats of coups, and even revolutions, there is one arm of government that usually is spared, and that is the judiciary. It shows how important the judiciary is in the scheme of governance. As soldier for Mamukra or Mujitumze, Parliament they will suspend and I will collapse it. Executive no cry about Pamom, but a ba judiciary there,
that's true.
And we need them.
That's true.
That tells you how important and sensitive that and our organ of government is. Until eba ye judiciary who and say di agrokra and say di amanyosem e44 sa particular arm of government, because look, when you are offended and when you feel your rights have been violated, there's only one place you go to seek redress.
Yeah.
And that's the court. What is here? Ye nyina ye ti hui. Say obi fi say or hondi chen no per se osisiwa. There's only one place you go to, and that's the court. It tells you say ye nyina the court is the leveler. And found pa we ye usika o we ye hieni o u sabi usumo uso. Once you get there, you are sure say your rights I mean justice will be served.
Yeah. What
is it? Nti ehonum there is a very sensitive area, and I would have wished say yemfa nya amanyosem, but ontimi ye amanyosem so emfiri mu man ye, because some of the appointments are political appointments. And why? Governance by itself is political. What is it? And like Aristotle, every man by nature is a political animal.
Yeah.
Whether we a judge or we a not partisan but political. A bit more confused being political with being partisan. There is a difference. What I say? People confuse the two. But obia yewe sabi ye mame muna omo ton nyoma wojomu no. They are very political. Omo kan nyoma bi chirawa. You'd be like, hey.
Yeah.
What I say? Yeah. We feel say young one 80 politics as here, and now we are the only politically conscious ones. But look, there are some places out there called Ubefisa Wemudi or Montinumase. But Omubio Omenum can some travel. Then you would realize that you still need to learn and learn more.
Absolutely.
What I say?
Yeah.
And the judges, even though I said that the judiciary is somewhat not sacrosanct, but a unique institution. But nonetheless, politics, they want to mean in free. But we should not be partisan when it comes to our commentaries on the judiciary. Now, to the specific comments by Ora, Justice Atugba.
Yeah.
Ono ankasa ejitu muse, everybody is free to make comments on the actions and our conduct of the judiciary. Ojitum, even though when we are on the seat, sometimes you don't find it comfortable when such comments are made against you. Or yeah, Supreme Court judge, me sure say na neni shadan just some of the comments that were made against the judiciary and some of the criticisms. And I'm not talking about those disparaging ones that eventually got people into trouble. And you know, people had some very harsh criticisms of the judiciary, and they expressed same. And Minjin said, like it was in the same manner. Is our Befi, and he also feels that no be Koswa, SSA, yes, one. I mean, yeah, dream to have views and to express him without hesitation. Now, on the question of the number of judges appointed to the Supreme Court, my personal view is we should have a ceiling. There should be a specific number enshrined in the Constitution. HSA, Udru number we are and Maun Untimintra. But as it stands now, it's open. There's only a minimum threshold, but there's no maximum threshold. Say they cannot be less than, I think, 9, maybe and 11 po. What is here? Yeah. So you can keep adding and adding. What is here? But my view is that we should have a specific limit as to the number of Supreme Court judges are appointing. This concept of packing of the judiciary and of the courts, it came about in the US. Omudia politics, they want me free judiciary more and but what is troubling is partisanship. US, the Supreme Court judges are known by their affiliations and our political ideologies. We're a Republican, we're a Democrat, we're a liberal, we're a conservative. Bench, everybody knows their affiliations. Their affiliations are not hidden. What is here? When it comes to writing their rulings, even though they sometimes are inspired by more ideological and leanings, in writing their judgments, but in Prempi, they look at the bigger interest of the US in writing their judgments. Until I would not fault anybody for having any political leanings and serving on the Supreme Court bench. It should not be partisanship. What is here? Now, this concept of packing the courts came about in the US when one president felt there is some undue advantage one particular ideology was gaining over the ideology and the party stand for, and decided threatened actually say Omudi agro the judges need be and so on. And that's where the concept of packing the courts came about. But yeah, in the end also, I feel that increasing the numbers the way I hear increasing a hard kakra. Without any reason, I do not think that we should be increasing the number of Supreme Court judges. There has to be some compelling reason. I bet me I can say when and I hear the number I say increasing number but I do not see such reason Okay. What has here? Okay. We could maintain the minimum threshold What has here? Unless there's some compelling reason. Na president kaza okay, in that case you per se DB count na ye. That having said so, there's also the issue of appointing more high court judges and appeal court judges. And the obia okase enya na mintiasie because enya say sebi there is this deliberate attempt to increase the number of high court judges to go and sit in existing courts. Be a new courts. Yeah. Until once there are new courts, there will be the appointment of new judges. More judges, yeah. What is here? Yeah. Until at the high court level, me feel that it is because of the increase in the number of courts, which for me is to expedite justice delivery. Because so be free gambaga ako tamale, and sana we share high court. Na ye di be a brain wa gambaga. Mijidi say no kwanswano no. Yeah. What is here? It expedites the delivery of justice, and it is safe also. What was here? And it comes with the need to appoint new judges. And these high court judges, now appeal court judges, numbers no cost there. Media, I think it is understandable because of the increase in the number of courts. Yes, what is here? But I have the matter at issue for me, only the number of Supreme Court judges. We are not clearly telling ourselves, you do sa level here, and my traho. The maximum threshold is open, even though there's a minimum threshold. And that's where I have an issue, because it is open to abuse. And Kahunu to say, appointment of Supreme Court judges, is in the bosom of the president. Or not decide to say, okay, I want to appoint Supreme Court judges, even though there are procedures for approval, except the Council of State, I think General Legal Council, whatever. There is a certain process, but eventually, all start or initiative process, to do the appointments, the president. What is here? Until when you be president who feels he wants to control the Supreme Court, Nandipan decided to say, I am going to appoint more justices to the Supreme Court. Because there's no maximum threshold. HN is say, Udru Hadi Awapim. Until Nipan can continue to appoint until Obenya Nambana that would rule in a manner that is favorable to or no Mampenino. And like I said, Supreme Court judges beyond the law are driven by ideologies also. I can say the business of the Supreme Court is not just the law. They look beyond the law. Because their rulings become law in themselves. What you must hear?
Yeah.
Their rulings become law in themselves. Are they different judicial precedents? Once the Supreme Court has pronounced on a matter, if there's no explicit law, that becomes the law. What you must hear? Until they are driven not just by law, but also by other considerations. It's just like any the social circumstance, the political circumstance, the economic circumstance, and sana washemra. In the same manner, the ruling of Supreme Court justices usually is driven by some of these considerations. Until we need to have that maximum threshold. Otherwise, it becomes open to abuse.
Okay.
And again, in respect of the ruling, Yadima Jachikwesino, I do not know what other ruling the respected former Supreme Court judge wanted. My issue is prosecuting the MP, and given the circumstance. Say, for 4 years, he's been starved of the opportunity to represent his people and so on. I am not saying, if the court in their wisdom feels, evidence are way, of Mrana, I do not have any issue with that. But I was just looking at the political considerations surrounding the prosecution. And I had issues with that. What you must say. And the good, former justice. And chain intia on a ruling, and I would ever give the ruling on any nyadwin. I would have expected some clarity in respect of the position. You say, Ebi Omuka say, I feel say should have been the way to go. What I say, and these are the reasons. Now Amana clear. So when we are appreciating his comment, we appreciate it fully.
Okay, but if I understand you properly, not me on also swasi here. So or cite Article 99 of the Constitution, saying case could rule as high as the Supreme Court, or cited 99. Now, let me read Article 99. Or say the High Court shall have the jurisdiction to hear and determine any question whether a person has been validly elected as a member of Parliament, or the seat of a member of Parliament has become vacant, or B, a person has been validly elected as a Speaker of Parliament, or having been. Okay, so I think it has to do with the
jurisdiction of the High Court.
of the High Court and the Supreme Court.
Was it the Supreme Court that pronounced he was incapable of, like he was ineligible, and I was not validly elected? Was it the Supreme Court or the High Court?
I think it was
no, maybe sir.
Yeah,
because initially it had to be the High Court first. When you go to appeal, then eventually it ends up at the Supreme Court. Yes. And I'm not sure it was the Supreme Court that made that pronouncement. Otherwise, they will refer you back to the High Court. But let me say, the process started at the High Court. After the ruling, the lawyers for the plaintiff, the defendant, felt say, look, you're High Court judge in Nyadrin. And nobody call appeals. Then eventually it ended up in the Supreme Court. And to say it should have ended at the High Court. As if to say Uko High Court na do asem na winning jinwa. Because the law says that particular issue, it is the High Court that has jurisdiction. Otherwise, justice won't be served. What if the justice at the High Court erred? What you must say? And for me, the case traveling to the Supreme Court, me when say the bonnet, because it is just part of the processes. The law allows you to explore and exploit all the processes.
Okay.
Until uko High Court na anye year, now uko Appeals Court, anye year now uko Supreme Court. Until I do not understand. Maybe, like I said, some better and further particulars regarding the view, would have been, would have made our work easier and would have appreciated it even better.
All right. I think Mohammed made that papa a social commentator. Latex foam, a mattress out. That's why unya ahwading a boa unipediano yenim free latex foam a mattress of all sizes and shapes. A beboa pa ni bono so edda fa was also enkonya enti open mattress, student mattress, orthopedic, king size, queen size, double, single mattresses and pillows. Latex foam na make for the amount many obia indibia social media latex foam edimu oko latex foam outlets and distributor shops bia no abenya papa latex foam your partner for life. Mesagati
CJ
mamemra hwe na miria makona na Fredia and so
Ozinkan Mechia His Excellency John Dramani Mahama na Mechia Honorable Theophilus Edumensa also tea anope na endeda nkoma oye the former Justice of the Supreme Court oye Atuguba Ozibotuga no I followed to a point na Mebeda atik oraka say what on my agente be there at any point in time the judiciary is reserved and revered from the other arms of government until even if there is military junta, the judiciary is not touched. Now I think there is a reason why the Mazano ought them, because I share the three basic arms of government are the executive and legislature. What to abandon was you one, and so what to obey you be like Harold Laswell said, politics is to get what, when, and how. So when you look at the principles concerning these two arms of government now, those who get in there, we don't use any criteria like why must somebody be there. But when it comes to the judiciary, you see that you cannot just be there, ABR, you want something at a particular time and you have a process of getting it. It doesn't work that way. There is a structure, a system. So why you must be at a particular place, there is a criteria you must meet before you can get to that level. Inti Israel, you cannot just jump somebody from nowhere to go to Supreme Court. At least the Constitution tells us how one can get in as a justice of the Supreme Court, even at all structures, at the inferior court and then at the superior court. The criteria are set. Until say you need them there, then the system must be protected. And say it Atuguba JCR. Everyone there, he was more passionate about the happenings in the country there, and he went ahead to separate constitutionality from constitutionalism, and he defined it. And there, yeah, bro, my own. And he said, "Oh, the baby na, there, you are kono. Yeah, she haima, and you may be okukokoda. Then it will get to a time that we have to reverse the entire process and reset the country to basis. And for example, preventing the electoral commissioner from testifying by the Supreme Court, was wrong. You may say, oh, yes, this is law. But you be able to teach you, say, yeah, but there, yeah, bibiama, sabi obianya no want to say, because you see, the powers of the executive are so enormous. There, at any point, the powers Elma Obino, and they na yeji to there, ampa, jimpano or sefata. If there is a middle person, our referee, now there is misunderstanding. Now this middle person is not allowed to testify. What does it cost? I want to Juma. CJ, if we are teaching, say, Bibi Tochima, Namaka say American, Amafus Wante. Namaso, CJ Sheda. Na CJ one Sheda. Ebazino su who kwa there, CJ Bechum Central Amaka no Amaf Wante. I don't think it costs so much to do that. But your mother didn't quite there. We are protecting something. Into raising this kind of issues, for example, today Maokai Georgia in the case. The Constitution has clearly stated there when it comes to a member of parliament, jurisdiction in terms of the judiciary are worker only in the High Court. Yes, of course, the High Court gave a verdict. Nipana some no kotiano no. Why nyano won't say or call the appeals court. When the matter has come to Supreme Court, say IGP na obi achiru obinika na say nchechemi wo ho a say IGP na adwuma ni portrait no so bibi wo ha tumi ne kade no go and do this. It's what he is basically saying there. Since the Constitution is clear on who determines that matter, no, occupy Supreme Court, no, whatever the situation may be, the Supreme Court should have referred it back to where the jurisdiction lies.
Really?
No, the Supreme Court gave the determination and gave the date for the re-election, and he's saying that that mandate doesn't lie within your bosom. So that's it. Because our constitution is right there. When it's about president, the Supreme Court determines it. When it's about the member of parliament, the High Court determines that. And what she said in there, no. So all the baby are no pension ma and the Supreme Court. And the ANDC crowd, they Supreme Court first. No. The question is about Sunday the Quay, led by our lawyer Chachuchi Kata. Question about so the coin there. Opere Supreme Court watch him. Ebenember Enna Obi wotum wo friend there or a member of parliament. Into one, Manuel Pede win there. Embra Wale Peki nominations ana. Embra watu abanwe nyimpan ana. Ana embra watu abe nyimpan no wa asweni in. Where exactly does one become a member of parliament? That was it. Yes, sir. Supreme Court ruling on the by now, they determined at a point in the process, the law, the Act funding 94 no begins to work.
Yeah.
So now it is clear.
99.
No. Sir,
okay. The
other what actually was against George Ejukwesi, talking about offend allegiance and all that.
Yeah.
94. That's what I'm talking about. And now the determination has been made by the Supreme Court, and you know that whatever the Supreme Court brings out, as its ruling, becomes more or less a precedent and becomes a law. And now we know that, but then it was not for Supreme Court to determine exactly, oh, this is that, go and do this and all that. What you're not doing for home, he's saying there, Yeninara, at any point in time, no, Adibia, Sabi, or the won't and Obama be not drying one thing there, and Brana Yedi Jumano, and he even gave a situation of unlike a personal experience where their rules determines who acts in the absence of the Chief Justice. And at the time, he was the most senior, but he was denied. So that's it. He gave all these scenarios. There, no, you can't bring a law and then somebody one day determines what to do with the law. The law is the law. It was at that time he protested because you can't have the law for people to be abusing the law and you sit and watch how the law is being abused. Inti, I mean, Mama Kanye, the exercise he did, yeah, politics in Tunjan. Because any age to me a hono or your baby are very critical. Now, what the other arms of government, or the legislature and the executive, no. Yenya is semi bia na yepede yempede o mine bobo anade yempede o mine obenya onye bia e hono ene de kwa abutoye mbaba. It is our responsibility, no matter where you belong, that the most arm of government, you know, you'll be protected. And we should take off the political eyes in looking at this. Like Mr. Tia, Beda Peyin, Nana Fedua, or Kade, Ebia, na me politics. No, we are politics for development. At any point in time, Adibi, or how no, or how you pack, or how a dominara. Inti say can once a na you come in such a way there. Ya bet na ho na ya hwe enwoma no ye. Na say in such bu ho na ebeye. Na nkrofo bi wo ho a ebia ofido because me a party A party B inti me appointment video me a lawyer and I what makoye dem. It I have to do this when I when you want to see there. That be baby I do akose ne de. Ye nyara from whatever political leanings are no. You feed the honor the one for the madden coho. And Bana Yashi the one for Yejumano. On no bia bedido. Na odi do them na. Emankasa more sanctity, integrity, and na the more reverence are. Or mining now what the one. Obokodo na abanadam. Sanko banadam, no quiet there. At any point in time, people will have to interpret even the rulings of a particular court. Now it's you know at a point NDC went to Supreme Court, a ruling was given, and we didn't we had to write to them to even explain the ruling to us. Oh, all the ambiguity brings about a lot of confusion. Now, a confusion about because you're politics, now political animals. We will be trying to connect the dots. Into army, I will not do any partisan politics with what Oye Justice Atuba another Atuba JC Oye and the Dano. But what I'm saying there, Yen Shano as Obia Wako Ye Juma. No way for Juma Num. Na we hu nyoma bia otosin na anhwe ne ye a daachi bi no oba hawyen na ye hwe ne dam na ye hu ne dam a ensam na okan no ye de besisin senyenyi because for example ebi na meti hey yes NDC is in opposition we obi MPP ne party of power wewu obi NDC ne party opposition wewu obi wo you know so what I'm saying is that the whatever we do, we'll continue.
Okay.
But menyanyanti ase, enti se jemensa, okwa na okwa mudo. Oh, abeya ya tuyi. First no, the ma figure me de bay, central me de bay. But echi no, the mo nsisai no yede. Obey. Abeka ya 2008 elections. After again. Abra no o declare elections no and a results in Imbopoem. But Oyana there said the mook you cry the back and yadia. So that's it. And you pana Olusino Onyantasi because explicit explanation as to why you have lost and why this one has won.
Okay.
And to say abuse when you say na a cocotina Supreme Court. Na people feel that the Supreme Court protected you for not giving some clarifications as to why some figures changed at certain point, and you think you are comfortable. Na we protect you. Kaida hunde Adom bebe no wo no so wo nwa wo di hu. Na be manwa na wo di hu no. Obama waye ndiye bi wo de tiaw.
Okay.
Anhwe ne ya na beka wo mpe wasam. But nye da wo mpe wasam. Sabi CJ ye nam haya police service. Say ye nyina ye du ha. Let me tell you at a point say mudu national headquarters. Na me show na me say where is Ghana going to? Is that the national headquarters? Because when there I there it is coming down. BBI said there this is a serious entity. But in recent time, say for her, in fact, I share the kind of declarations why you get no what they sacks what they with their uniform color, what I nadi and police crowd would change in a hall and idea. Yes, it gives you some level of confidence that you are entering into a place that's Bibi Hawa. Because your management or there, even your entrance tells a story about you.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't just that. He spoke at length as to even the powers that are given to the executive. And to the extent the judicial council and government has 4 appointees, including the attorney general. They are supposed to be more or less independent, you are still not independent because you have members in who are representing the government or the executive, and at any point in time it's like there's a struggle into minya with the move free and fair operations.
Okay.
I'm a mental question. Mama can't me this in there. Ghana, or your union idea. When you ask who you teacher or my them able to the empenyufo and was what teacher no day giant. You are teacher the day, yes, you able to me, I am able to me. Na your day a jar a chiba. Na your dija one, your dija one, eben quando. Here, Ami, na me papa police ni. Me sanso me kotina if you will be another police ni. If you were me who there, not our soft spot for a particular political party, but because of former police officer, there wasn't a day I would disclose who there or belong to this party, and at any point in time, Papa no mama task there. A juma no ye no, on ye there obetche bibia otu nabako, and this is what this man has held as a principle. And to say, Amina mihu damuno. Me who the police ni be no. I mean police won't hear them. Now it gets to a level there. A police officer can openly say there, I mean a background in at the highest level. No there. No, the standards are falling. It is not just about the judiciary. The standards that are falling at all sectors. Yes, so
okay.
I'm not enjoying weirdo because or drew weirda. I mean, now in the chibafu.
But that's Lawrence Gatti of the NDC. Adom 106.3 FM. Senamidi kan was training Ghana Standards Authority and one Ministry of Trade and Industry and the Ghana Automotive Development Center and the Association of Automobile Assemblies at the inaugural exhibition, the first of its kind. Cars are assembled in Ghana, have made in Ghana cars and na sa exhibition no so 20 very authentic cars of different brands, models and variants, and then this exhibition no so Ghana Automotive Center Automotive Development Center ben any STC edi ehwanimu ben obechebi lamte interchange no enti hye so ene ana sa dwumade no baso enti se opese we experience ya fa ho ehemu ebi nana fredua
okay
memra ho
cars now all come once. Say cars no doors papa. And a cars papa. And yeah, in Ghana. Now, ma ya kaise emri bi etwemu. Anke fiti sampen so ni ansesa kremo. Say anke yakoye nim krase ni ayakoyi. Say Ghana emri bi etwemu na no plumbers ni in Ghana. Willow Brook bus near in Ghana. Thomas Moto near in Ghana. Boafu. Zanka Boafu, your friends, man diesel Boafu size. Near small pickup Ghana. Adom, in your friends, 207. Ghana for the and near your Ghana, your friend Adom. Until Ghana, Yehuniama. Anka Odikra, Anka. Papa ne de ba ko us motos ena ura Rollins betu ne fi Ghana ma ne dwane koy nti na adwuma ne ntumi nkoso za nwuma na ka nyina Rollins pezu ne guye na ya do rekufa do ase ne nwuma aba if se za ne ma ye peje eboapa ye twense bedum pempenso a e bedum pempenso a obisa se ka ne ya tuguba speech there be so introduce me no car na me so me
no your commercial information am de ma
introduce me say edrum so
me yam LPM
za inti cars na ye kan o ze bebo so bia be hwe na ai eduma abana ya atik ayo ya unum se nyumbi o sa
yanko asem no so
senior di don ko to nyumbi achi wa ko
na afro de yanko but
Debbie would give it and some now they are to Jano. Man for link and breme and I'm instrument me uncle baby. Sisiana mama maybe na metie and common on my kind kakra. Mankai and quetri, but mentias and is any decay opening out to go na oye atem before atemo pen ku kesi moye Supreme Court ono na 2012 election otna petition so audit 3 minutes ka 8 months asem no wakase ni dikan Supreme Court nsem no ni mentiase nti pesa otni mo mame mentiase ne se ni dikan o se nhihia ye de peja mpani ko Supreme Court no na ninja ne sa na otre sa asitre no
yeah
eno wan chirichiri mu ana o chirichiri mu the speech no me ewa nti me hu bebi but ufa eno no ni so keke no a menti asie nti me kono misre se me chia no atene na mame Supreme Court no tumia ye dipeja Supreme Court judges no ye de she president nsa obodin na ye de akoma parliament na parliament etim so a na nipa krona be Supreme Court judge me bona good and a Supreme Court no so yemfa ibianto so se untumi mfa mro saa dodoi inti se edua yenchronto se untumi mfa mro edu ne wo hono no ne toso mienu ni hia titru a behwe de page panin bi akọ Supreme Court no ya chro no nyina wo ye mra pon no constitution no me bwana good inti no menyi ni se ye wo hawo bibia ebia adwen kire ehia titru ene ni ana atik epijana se anhwa na ya fabroso abroso no so de adwen kire kopembra yitumi etinti mu akire se we de sanete ni sana adwen kire obi ane na adwen me eka men kono nanka ebia ye disi baby a ebeboae if say nchirchirmu no ebiom se ne atik kan obehwe no na akofa baby obidi eyibi nko akoshe na fe etwa nhyehyɛ a yɛdwen sɛ Supreme Court wɔ hɔ ma ɔman no na etwam hɔ ɛmmoa yɛn nti ebia ɛsisi ehwɛ na edu baabi ɛno bɛboa yɛn ebinom ayɛ yɛde hwɛ wɔn de a yɛde susu ho a ebenya adwen wɔ mu adeɛ baako a ɛsisi agyitum menim sɛ panin no kaa sɛ ɛnsi sɛ president no pagya nominations na ɔka saa na
okay the powers yɛde ama the
president
the executive
so or nominate Supreme Court judges ɔka sɛ ɛno ana sɛ no wanka ana ɔka
ne nyinaa ka ho
okay
Judicial Council.
Yeah.
It was not specific as to his powers of appointing.
Good. Okay. So, maybe the answer say could do president there. So they no dream ho anti anka hwan na on pagya wo. And na ehifana obi pagya Supreme Court judges are in a political sway enka ho. Minim so bi ni ma enkyerɛ me. Because tumi abedi unsem no ope amana ama ɔman no ani ahwɛ baabi na mpuntuo no akɔ sɛ nea wadwen yɛ sɛ ɛsesɛ ɛkɔ ɛno nti na wokɔ America fo no ma wɔn Republicans na wɔ hɔ nom na sɛ kwan bɛda hɔ sɛ yɛmfa obi nkɔ Supreme Court a wɔn pre kɔpɛ obi a n'adwen ɛne wɔn deɛ ɛsae ɛkɔ bɛnkurom saa nso na Democrat fo nso saa mmere biara yɛde mpani akɔ Supreme Court ya na nea ɔbɛyɛ nomination no baby ɔne n'adwen ɛkɔ bɛnkurom ɛnyɛ sɛ ɔkɔ hɔ a ɔnkɔdi ma no but ɔni nhwɛ baby ɔno gyina ɛfa amanyɔm ɛno ho hia nti obi hɔ no ma na mayɔ sɛ mu no ɛne free for aborɔfo no atoto no socialist ne conservatives ne ɛkeka ho nti obi afa ne line obi also a tini ne kwan bi so ɛna ɔno pɛ no ebi aba amane kwan bi so ɛwɔ hɔ nom ɔmpɛ sɛ efiri saa amane kwan no so ne edi bu man nti obi a ne sɛ ne ɔyɛ na eyifa me de sɛ panin na nko antia ne etwam no anasɛ ne ɛkɔ so no ɛfa nhyehyɛ no ho a ɛne sɛ nkɔmɔ bi ani hɔ na sɛ opagya biribi a ɛyɛ nsakraeɛ wɔ mu a ɛne anka bɛboa ma yɛate aseɛ ne yɛhu biribi a ɔpɛ sɛ ɛkɔ wode kɔ ne kasa afa gyakye question no ho ne ɛdi kan yɛ adwenkyerɛ ne ɛtɔ so mmienu me deɛ makan nea owura Tony Davis nso aka ɔno yɛ lawyer ni ɔsan yɛ panin ɛwɔ MPP legal committee no so ɔno ne titrani no se ɔno n'adwene ne sɛ owura tuguba no asɛm ɔkan no n'adwene ne sɛ wankan judgment na anwie ifso ɔkan wie ankɔ bɛte aseɛ sɛ atemmuo na efi high court no na ɛwɔ ɛnam ne kwan so ɛna atemmuo no firi Supreme Court no nso nam ne kwan so atemmuo no firi Supreme Court no it is based on egyina fact sɛ constitutional matter ɛne yɛde kɔɛ constitutional matter ɛne yɛde kɔɛ ɛnyɛ aha mfiri ha ɛnyɛ high court asɛm no ɛde kɔɛ na matter of constitution na ɛno no constitutional matter no friends Supreme Court ɛna ɛdi saa asɛm no nti ɛsɛ nyinasoɔ no ɛna Supreme Court ɛde kan asɛm wɔn amfa nka high court atemmuo no asɛm nti no ne saa nso deɛ ɛna ɛtɛkyɛ sɛ ɔpanin no sɛbewati na mɛka mea metiri mu asɛm kakra ne scandalous no deɛ ɛna nka yɛde describe na adwene na ɔde to dwa baako no 2012 election that was scandalous ato deɛ no nso yɛbɛgya mu
Atik.
Yeah. I was just let me kind some of.
And also glance it through.
Yes. And I think
It's not a bad speech.
It's an interesting read, and like I said, some of the personal experiences in Asifo, but on him, he made some other points which meaning the arguing, especially on the ruling of Dom Level, any CDD and 8 others are already case in the Supreme Court. The delay, and I had cause to speak to the facts. I mean, Sebi, commonsensically, why am I ruling? At the time, the effect of that ruling is moot. Because Nipano, what Chayama, Wakovi, and Sana would the ruling about. And the rule, the litigation was to question the legal validity of his procession on leave. What he has here. Na Nipani the case na court. What Chayama Nipana called leave we are after na yedi ruling about. And he said the Supreme Court acted in bad faith. And meaning he had to that extent. And he did not cite just the Dumelevo case, He also mentioned National Media Commission versus Attorney General case in 1996. Ruling was given in 2000. And I think it was to make the point that sometimes the judiciary and the Supreme Court specifically makes decisions in bad faith. Because now NMC air contested the appointment of members of the governing boards and chairman, by government and by the executive. And Omuka say, Mrana it should be the Media Commission, National Media Commission, that should appoint members of the boards of those state-owned media, or more boards, more chairman. They are supposed to do the appointment in consultation with the president, but not the president appointing without, like the other way around.
Yeah.
What you say?
Yeah.
And by your Chenyama, Rollins free abemo. And Omudi ruling by, which was the effect was nil because the suit was against the Attorney General who was working for and on behalf of the president at the time. And I think it was in that context he brought about the Domlevo issue, which meaning Yadrin. But the issue about Jajikwe in meaning in Yadrin, he feels the Supreme Court in their decision was misled by the facts and rulings in the Dramani Babel case. What you say, even though, and on one case, there's a similar case which happened to Zachary something in Williamsey in 2004. There was a post-parliamentary election dispute. A ruling was given to the effect, post-parliamentary election dispute should end at the appellative level. Be determiner from High Court, it should end at the appeals level. And also, even though he disagrees. But I feel, there's a process in in our judicial processes. So we start High Court. Now, you go to the next.
Yeah.
Then you go to the final one. But he was making this point, it is only the presidential election that the Supreme Court should be dealing with. But Kahun say, it is not everybody who feels satisfied with the ruling of the High Court. Even Supreme Court, there is a room for you to seek review. So it tells you, the process is not static. It's dynamic. And it allows you to, it evolves, like the process is such that you can move from one point to the other. What you are saying?
Yeah.
And if you are saying, like when the Supreme Court in respect of that particular case, because it traveled all the way to the Supreme Court, and that the Supreme Court should have read. I don't think that would have meant declining jurisdiction, which in itself is a problem.
Yeah.
If you have the jurisdiction and intentionally decline jurisdiction, it creates problems. What is here?
Yeah.
For example, High Court. High Court amam ruling. Me see mini High Court in Yadrin, me appeals court, me see mini omunyadrin, my basu. You see, circle back to High Court. How about what happens to the appeals court decision?
Yeah.
And to Miko High Court now, whose decision are they going to work with? Is it the appeals court decision or the High Court's decision or the Supreme Court's decision? And Tina, the processes are graduated and we have that build up now. So that finally, Omunya Kasape, like I said, their word is law in some instances. If there is no law on anything, their ruling becomes a friend precedent and a case law, which becomes is a source of law in itself. What you must say. And Many the venerable former Justice of the Supreme Court in Yadri. But his speech, there are a lot of you know, we can learn a lot. And one sense I'm job for Musudi, you can be sensational. Oka Adom 106.3. So Atuguba says the Supreme Court acted in bad faith. Meanwhile, he was speaking generally about how sometimes the decisions of Supreme Court can be seen to be in bad faith. And he cited two. In fact, he cited two. NMC Attorney General D. And Oman Mosso. But because this is sensational, now I'm going to say he's criticizing the current Supreme Court.
Lawrence, sorry, briefly.
I still stand my point there. Baby, I watch it about one we sign.
Absolutely.
Ghana Brano. What she saying? What judiciary no at level be no more way when it comes to elections. The Supreme Court was there to interpret the Constitution, that Article 94. After its interpretation, it was not for them to determine the substantive matter.
They give consequential orders.
Okay.
No. They are. What I'm listen. They are. Maybe. When you have interpreted the Constitution, the interpretation itself has consequential orders. You don't directly.
No, they have to give consequential orders.
No.
Direct what to be done.
No. If you say that A and B and C.
Yes, sorry.
Why are you saying no?
Maybe.
Debbie, why are you saying no? Are you saying no?
I'm saying
that the interpretation.
Usually it is guided by the reliefs you seek. What is here? And their interpretation is guided by the reliefs you seek.
And what I'm saying is that
interpretation, no, just reliefs now.
The reliefs at Supreme Court, that was not for it. Say they wanted to seek as to the Nipano one nullify no.
Okay.
Again, for example, Atuguba Assembly. In recent time, limited registration. Limited registration. Some other political parties were not in tune with what the Electoral Commission has directed. There were 276 districts, including the now what's the no? One expand.
Okay.
Now 1 year other electoral areas. Anima, Electoral Commission will review Wojumano on the 2nd. Now I start other process on the 3rd. On the crowd will be by 11th.
Lawrence.
Supreme Court work no. What's in there? A seminar what the abano concerning the exercise now will be on the 2nd. No, will be taken on the 17th of October. And you see, all these things doesn't protect justice. Okay. And that is what Justice Atuguba was talking about.
Lawrence got you of the NDC.
Oh, Supreme Court.
No, you be. 10 seconds.
In some no pejano. Now I'm be akasa 3 times. Me kasa.
And say now kasa. Now kasa 10 times.
No the times at all.
Oh, nana. Me time na some pacho.
Intime fama. Emra no ono ade no e no ye de ebebo anatene ne na ekoso no so. You see that sad no e hagana nsem o peja na eboa but e hagana say unya 2 minutes then ade ye
na afredia
na obi anka say unya no obi kuntia ne
MPP madam say ya fasida ne ma awake water na face syntax tank commander man na omo so yasere ma ye de Mpensenpensenmu no ye de